Hello again. It's Ronnie Jollis, the paper artist, and we're going to be doing another really fun paper project. Working on glass, on could be glass jars, glass bottles. These are various. This is a wine bottle. This is a beer bottle. Um, this is a some kind of a bottle jar of some kind. So using a bottle or jar, we're going to be creating really what's going to end up being really beautiful vases, which I'll talk about more in a minute. So here you have a glass jar of some kind. The first step, this is very similar to my art form, which is working in layered paper. I tend to always do the background by ripping paper, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. So let's use this one as our example. I don't know if you can see there's trees on here, which we'll talk about more the second layer in a minute. So take a piece of construction paper, or if you don't have construction paper, pieces from a magazine, whatever colors you like. I try to make it, for right now, let's make this first one color. So you could do it in black. This is a black I chose because I'm going to do white trees on it. This is all from the newspaper. So I just looked for darker color blacks and grays, and I ripped and glued that on. And this one was just a blue construction paper that if you look closely, you can kind of see underneath that it was ripped as it was put on. Here you can look at this one. This one I want to just say I ripped in the long way. I ripped it in a specific way. The others no. So you're going to get your jar. Lovely jar. And we're going to do blue again. And I'm going to take this, I'm just going to start ripping. Now, ripping is really a wonderful thing to do. I find it always very enjoyable. And I really would like not to have any straight edge going in. So I'm just going to rip some pieces. And as I'm ripping, I usually have music on, but I will be ripping these pieces, and I'll have my piece nearby to rip more if I need it. I'm going to take the glue, and I'm going to put it right on the paper, like that. And I take my finger and sort of spread it out like this, and then I'm just going to glue it right on. It may take a second or two for it to sort of hold, but I'm going to keep gluing. I'm going to keep putting some glue right on the paper. Then I go like this, and I'm overlapping. So I'm going to take this piece and overlap it over that one. I find sometimes if I just, maybe to the count of 5 to hold it in place, so the glue kind of gets enough tackiness to hold on. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to cover this whole jar with pieces of ripped blue paper. Okay, this is construction paper. I think construction paper does a really great job of doing this. And I am just going to continue to cover it. Notice I am getting some glue on it. That's okay. And it may be a little bit of a mess, the surface you're working on, so maybe put some newspaper down or something if you're working on an area you don't want to get covered with glue. So I'm just going to keep going. The construction paper I'm using, which is pretty old, does not really have a front or a back that I could tell. So I'm just using either side. Okay, so in this case, I have to make sure this piece is down and then this one is over. Now, in any jar, any bottle, there are curves to it. There are places where the construction paper isn't going to want to go flat. And you're seeing it happen a little bit right here. So sometimes you can just take your scissors and make a little cut or make a little tear with your hands and just kind of tear it and then sort of fold it over. I don't know if you could see what I just did, but I just made a place where it will sort of be flat on the glass. Now on top, that can be a little tricky. You've got these ridges. So I've noticed, it may take a few tries, but I kind of did it in little strips over the top. So I kind of go like this, then I pull it around and bring it down. You're not going to be seeing through this, so it's okay if it comes inside. And I kind of like the look of having something in the side anyway. So I am just going to cover this whole thing with construction paper. And when I'm done, I'm going to go back and just make sure it's all flat. It's all flattened on. Okay? and it will look, let's say, like this, or like this one. This was done, as I said, with newspaper. So if you don't have construction paper, I think it still looks great. And by the way, if you look carefully, you can kind of tell it's newspaper because you can see where I ripped it. So it's got a little bit of white edges. I love that. I think that's really beautiful. So I would not worry about that in the least. If you do, and you may choose to use newspaper because you may like that look. I kind of do. On this one, I just want to show you the way when you rip the construction paper sometimes. This is a black construction paper. I want to show you. Can you see how the edge has a little bit of a variation in how it looks? I like that. I like that variation. So I tried to show some of that when I did it, because I thought it would kind of look neat to see sort of lines. That's just from the way I ripped it. So when you're ripping paper, look at it carefully. See if there's any nice rips, nice tears, maybe some changes in the paper. Here's one that I really like, that you might like. Paper is a wonderful material. It's just fiber. And so when you rip it, you will sometimes have the fibers kind of be exposed in a different way. So it can look very beautiful. So, okay, we're going to cover this whole thing, and then you're going to have a jar. And this one I decided to cover in a lighter colored construction paper, just to make it more interesting. Where was that paper? It was this, it's kind of a grayish color. So you get the whole thing covered, and it dries pretty quickly. Then we're going to be doing some trees. If you just have a white printer paper, if that's the only kind of white paper you have, it'll work. If you have like a white construction paper, also very good. And I'd like you also to have a pencil, just a regular number 2 pencil. We're going to talk a little bit about trees. We're going to be making trees on and gluing them right on here. Very similar to my art form. I can't help myself. So you're going to, if you'd like to, you can draw it and then cut it. I tend to sometimes freeform it, but let's say I'm going to draw a line like this. Not a straight line. No reason for a straight line. Trees are not straight. Trees go zigging, zagging. And then the thing about a tree, if you look outside of a tree, it starts big, and as it goes up, it gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And it's same with the branches. The branches get thinner and thinner and thinner. The further away from the trunk they get, the thinner they get. And the further up from the ground they go, the thinner. So you're going to cut out some pieces of white paper that start out with whatever thicknesses you want. Let's say I'm going to start out with that kind of a thickness. Can you see that? And I'm going to just do this nice and dark. And then as I go up, I wouldn't really do it this dark, but I'm trying to show you. Okay. It's getting thinner and thinner and thinner. It's not perfect, but can you see that? So I'm going to cut out a bunch of these. I'm going to draw a few of these. And I will have some maybe that start out bigger. Again, it doesn't matter if they're straight. And then as I go up, I'm going to go slowly so I can slowly make them thinner and thinner and thinner. And by the way, you can keep going all the way up because I'm going to use all parts of this. So I'm just going to keep getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And I'll do one right here. I'll do one more. So I'm drawing a line, and then I'm going to start at the bottom. Whatever thickness I start on, I'm going to just slowly try to get thinner and thinner and thinner. So you're going to have kind of this kind of a drawings, okay? And by the way, all the part that you cut out in the middle is going to be useful too. And I'm going to just cut right along that line. Okay? And I'm just going to cut that piece out. So here's one that I cut out. And you're going to, by the way, use the other side. So it doesn't matter if your pencil marks show, but here's one. Can you see how if I folded it like this, how one end is much thinner than the other? That's what you want. You want it to slowly get thinner. So I'm going to cut a bunch of pieces out like that. So here we have them. So in my artwork, I tend to have the trees darker on one side than another. But can you see how one side of the tree is darker than the other? All of them have darkness on this side. So it looks like the sun is coming from the lighter side. So it's darker on one side, lighter on the other. And then I'm going to take my pencil and I put my finger right on that edge. And I'm going to push it down just on one side. Just on one side. So I'm kind of darkening that side. We can figure this out, make it more perfect later. By the way, you can also work right on here once you've glued it on. So this is not the final time we can do this. This is just the first time. So I'm going to do a bunch of these, okay, of these little white things, and I'm going to start to glue them. I'm going to start on this, let's say this black bottle, just because it's going to give really good contrast as I start to glue them. And I'm going to glue these right on. Now you're thinking, okay, what about a branch or something? We'll add that. We'll add that in a minute. We don't have to do it all as one piece. You just do it in parts. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to add glue to the back of it. You see how I'm doing that? Take the glue on my finger. Again, it's my finger. And then I'm going to glue it right on here. I'm gluing it right on my bottle. And there I go. Okay. I'm gluing it right on my bottle. It gets a little tricky when you're going up this little part, the little turn. See how it's turning? So I'm just going to glue it on. It looks pretty straight, and that's fine. It could be a little crooked. That's fine, too. Trees do not necessarily grow straight up. Close to it, but not necessarily. And then let's say I have another one here. Well, I may put that one maybe over here. Have it like that. It may not be straight. It may want to be straight. So I'm going to get some, maybe two, let's get 2 trunks down for right now. And you can do as many as you want. But then we're going to add some branches. And branches can be rather beautiful. So I'm going to glue these on. I'll do one over here. Okay. So I'm going to have two tree trunks. This one is a little bit clogged up. As you all know about Elmer's glue, it gets clogged sometimes. They have not perfected the Elmer glue bottles. I don't know who's going to finally come up with a way to do it. Okay. So I've glued two tree trunks on there. Can you see them? And they have some darkness on one side. Now, I'd like to have some branches because that's what's going to add interest. When you look at this one, part of what makes that so appealing is I glued some branches on too. This was done the same way. This was one big piece I glued on, then I glued on some little pieces. None of this is from one, so they're all little pieces that I glued on. That's exactly what we're going to do on here. So, okay, well, here's one of the pieces that was an inside part. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to, this is a little hard. You're going to start thinner, and you're going to get really, really thin as slowly as you can. I've been doing this for many years, so I can usually do this pretty well, but if you're just starting to do this, it's going to take a little practice. So, okay, let's say I'm going to just rip it and use this part, the littler parts. Can you see that? It's just a little piece. And let's say I glued it on. I'm going to add a little, I could glue it on and maybe, the wonderful thing about paper is, it's like clay in that you can control it. Even though this is an absolutely straight piece, I am not going to make it straight as I glue it. I'm going to kind of take it and make it turn corners as I glue it. So next step, I'm going to add a little bit of shading to just one side of it. And I've been doing it on my left side, so I'm going to continue to do it over there. And I may do more of this once it's on. Then I'm going to take a little glue, put it on the back of it, and I'm just going to glue it right onto my branch. So here I'm putting it down, and I'm going to have it maybe turn a little bit. Remember, this is paper. I can do whatever I want with it. So I may glue it, and then I don't like things too straight, so I may turn the corner with it. See, I'm just pulling it a little bit. Let's see how that looks. That's okay. I think I like that. Now let's do another one. Here's a little piece that was just a leftover from one of the things I cut. So I am going to use this. I'm going to put a little glue on my fingers. And I'm going to take that and maybe have a little bit of it coming right out from this one. And then I'll just rip it. Rip it and glue it. This glue will dry clear, so I'm not going to worry too much. But it's a little straight. I don't like straight. So I'm going to make it turn. Can you see how I did that? When I glued it down, I kind of took it and made it turn a little bit. So here's one branch. I'm going to just start adding branches. And it's going to end up looking like this. It's going to have lots of branches. Now, if you have a pencil other than just your number 2 pencil, this is just a Crayola colored pencil, but it's black and it's a little bit better. I am going to come right over here and show you. Okay, I'm going to show you right here. I want to make this part a little darker, so I'm going to take this and I'm making it darker, and I'm just kind of going like this all along that one. See what I just did? I'm going to do that up here too. This is dried a bit. I had this on here from before, so it's already dried, and I can do a little bit along this one. I could add another marking or two. This one I didn't get much on, so I might just want to define that one a little. Can you see how I'm doing that? I'm just sort of darkening that edge. Kids can do this too. This is something that any, let's say 4th grade and up, younger than that maybe. For the little kids, I say let them cut out pieces of white paper. If they can make them get a little thinner, great, and glue them on, they can have themselves a beautiful forest. And you're just going to darken the sides, okay? The more you do that, the more depth. So this is how that is going to look. Now, when we all are cleared to go back to school and stores and all of that, when things settle down, I would like you to probably go out and get yourself maybe some Mod Podge or some kind of clear sealant, kind of a varnish. You can put on it at the end when you're all done, just so it'll seal it all up. But for now, we're not going to worry about that. Now, what if I decide, oh, you know what, I really would like to do some grass or have some flowers here. Great. Get some green paper. Get some green paper. We can put some down here if we want. Or let's say, okay, this is actually one I did purposely because I decided, well, why should all my trees be white? What if I want some darker trees? So I made it a little bit of a lighter color. And I'm doing the same thing with the dark, only I'm not going to do the shading right now. And I'm just going to cut it out. What am I cutting? Thicker to thinner as I go up. If you need to, you can make marks on this, especially if you have if you have a light colored pencil, like a yellow, you can draw it. But I'm just going to start and then get slowly smaller and smaller and smaller as I go up. Okay, so here's my piece. And I'm going to just maybe glue that. I might glue it like that. I might just take a little piece and have it come off like that. I'm not gluing anything right now. I'm just playing. That one maybe like that, and maybe something coming off of this one. And then I'm going to do other trees. So this one is going to have black trees on it, which I think will be rather lovely. And this one I could do if I wanted maybe some clouds. I could add, or what if I decide it's a beautiful fall day? I want to have these trees, but then I want to add color. So once I've glued all this on, I could take a little green and maybe put it on for leaves. Rip it on and put it for have a little ripped. I like to rip when I'm doing leaves. Rip the leaves. Let's say it's fall, so I want yellows. I have some of my yellow from before, so I might rip the yellows and start to glue them on here. So I'll have the yellow on here. You can do anything on these bottles. Once you've gotten your construction paper glued on and it's dried, this is like a piece of paper, only it happens to be round. And you can do whatever you want on here. I like to do trees. I tend to always gravitate to trees, but you could do flowers, do beautiful big flowers on here. You could do anything you want to do. Now, when they're all done, and this one I haven't yet finished, but I was just out walking and I found some of these branches, and I thought, oh, these would look so pretty in a vase like this. I don't know if you can see. I just think that's so pretty. Or here's some. Let's put a flower in here. You've got yourself a beautiful vase. These are dried flowers. So any of these, I think this one, now that you can see it's sort of starting to dry, is going to be spectacular, I think. When it dries, it's going to be really beautiful. And I'm going to add more branches. So this is something you can do at home. And I think I would do more than one, because the first time I do anything, I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. The second time I do it, I don't make the same mistakes. I tend to do new mistakes, but I'll still make mistakes. By about the third time, this was, I think, the third one, I was getting better. This one, although it was just newspaper, it was just dark. I just looked through the newspaper and ripped out anything that was dark. I think that has a cool look, and I don't know quite what I'll do on this yet. But it's like you can do anything on here. If you do a light one, it could even be white, then you'll want to have darker things on it. If you're doing a dark one, you want lighter things. And that is a fun project, and I look forward to seeing what you all are going to do.